Hey guys, I wanted to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement during these extremely troubling times. As we consider the moral outrage demonstrated by the protesters who have taken to the streets, the collective anger that inspires us to cry out for justice, it's actually evidence that there must be a moral law which has been written upon our hearts. As we stand together against immorality like racial inequality and legal injustice, there should be no doubt in our minds that we're all able to recognize a universal moral law. But have you ever stopped to ask, how is it that we're all able to recognize this same moral law? Why is it that we are all opposed to racial inequality and legal injustice? Have you ever stopped to ask where this moral law comes from? Think about it. If we're nothing more than evolved animals, then why would we embrace objective morality for all humans? If we look to the animal kingdom, we don't find the same sort of moral law. When the cat kills the mouse, there's no moral outrage on the part of all mice everywhere. And when dogs terrorize cats, cats don't respond with accusations of speciesism. Listen, if we're nothing more than highly evolved animals, then our moral expectations of one another, it's nothing more than social convention. And if that's the case, then there's no objective reason for us to be outraged by those who choose to ignore the moral conventions of our society. And one reason why is because, listen, if the moral law is based upon social convention, then it's also subject to change just based on the opinions of the convention. Rather than establishing a basis for objective morality, this sort of society would be ruled by the opinions of the majority. And all that is to say is that it would be ruled by the mob. And it's sad to say that this sort of mob rules mentality, it actually resulted in both slavery as well as the Holocaust. Thankfully for us, we have a moral law. It's objective and it's been written upon our hearts. And it's actually helped the world many times to stand against all sorts of injustices. And it's the same moral law that leads us to passionately stand against every injustice and every inequality. With that being the case, the question that we ought to be asking is this: where did this objective moral law come from? We know it didn't evolve because, like I've already pointed out, if it's the convention of men, then it's ever changing. Therefore, it's only reasonable for us to conclude that the moral law that we all recognize within us, it was created by our Creator. And I would go further by insisting that the God of the Bible is the one who wrote the moral law upon our hearts. Paul confirms this in Romans chapter 2, where he declares that the law of God has been written on our hearts, and our conscience also bears witness that we know this law. It's for this reason that we feel guilty whenever we sin against the law of God. And not only that, but this guilty conviction that we feel deep within our conscience, it's actually God's way of helping us to understand that we are guilty before Him and that we need forgiveness. We need a Savior. And we can rejoice in knowing that Jesus is the Savior who alone can pardon us from the sins that we've all committed. Now, with all of this in mind, I encourage you to join us this Thursday as I continue to break down the moral law. We want to know, what is the moral law? Where does it come from? Is there evidence to believe that the God of the Bible has created us to embrace an objective morality? We're also going to consider the moral law as evidence for the God of the Bible to help us to see that only the God of the Bible could be the creator of this sort of law. You can join us this Thursday evening, June the 4th, at 6:30 p.m. right here at Calvary South Austin. We'll welcome the audience. We'll have a live audience if you'd like to join us. Or you can sit at home and watch online right here at calvarysouthaustin.com. Until then, let's continue to fight the good fight of faith, all for the glory of God.